What's up, everybody? Slam Zany here again. I hope you're having a good time with all the E3 hype and announcements, but there's still one announcement we were all expecting but still haven't got. I know what that is. You know what that is. We all know what it is, and it's the Switch Pro. Obviously, it's the Switch Pro. And in today's video, I want to talk about why I think there is still a chance that Nintendo shows off and announces the Switch Pro even as late as during their E3 presentation. Now, before we dive too deep into it, if you like this video or want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. You can also catch me on Twitch, so feel free to come hang out. Link is down in the description below. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. If you caught my previous video about the Nintendo Switch Pro, you'll know I am of the mind that it's just one of those things that Nintendo has in its pocket and will announce at any given moment. The problem is nobody knows when that moment will be or why it hasn't been announced yet. I think there are a lot of factors that go into the lack of a Nintendo Switch Pro reveal, and we are going to get into a few reasons why I think it's still going to happen. Okay, let's get into it right now. Many games are rumored to be taking advantage of the new upgraded hardware, and developers wanted to use E3 as an opportunity to show off the performance enhancements of the Switch Pro. If this is the case, many of the trailers and game reveals are relying heavily on the announcement of the Switch Pro, and therefore, I think Nintendo may still put out an announcement either right before their E3 presentation, for example, maybe Monday night, or at the very beginning of their E3 presentation to kick things off on Tuesday. Now, doing this during E3 can build incredible hype around Nintendo, who is closing out E3 and would be doing so with a Switch Pro announcement, potentially Breath of the Wild 2, and even maybe some third-party games that really take advantage of the new hardware. And this could put the hype heavily on the shoulders of Nintendo and have the news outlets and content creators like myself speaking more on Nintendo than any of the other E3 announcements. Nintendo would essentially own the coverage post E3, and that would be huge. Okay, there's also the fact that recent releases on the Switch are really starting to show the system's age. Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, for example, just released with pretty poor performance results from what I'm seeing. Kingdom Come Deliverance announced for the Switch and getting a release. A game that already runs very poorly on current gen hardware is somehow going to be running okay on a Switch is beyond me, if I'm being honest. But if a Switch Pro was there and available, I think that would make more sense. Breath of the Wild, also a launch game for the Nintendo Switch, struggled heavily in certain areas on the original Nintendo Switch. And the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is supposed to be coming out relatively soon, is supposed to somehow run just as good, if not better, on the original Switch that is showing its age at 4.5 years old now. So those are just a couple of thoughts that are bouncing around my head at the moment, but I also wanted to get into a couple of other things that I am noticing. One of which, Mario plus Rabbids, has a sequel that was just announced and shown off. Nintendo leaked it right before Ubisoft's press conference, and we saw it in detail. We saw a little bit of gameplay, we saw a trailer, we saw screenshots, we saw a bunch of stuff. Okay, it looks really good, almost too good, and I am not the only one who thought that. At first I was thinking, it's just me, is it just me who thinks this looks too good? No, there were multiple people. Imran Khan, formerly Kind of Funny, I followed him quite a bit, I saw him on Twitter mention it. Jeff Grubb backed him up, so there is a pretty solid consensus that Mario plus Rabbids sequel looks a little bit too good for the current Switch. Also, another thing is my previous predictions was one of the big predictions was Bayonetta 3 would be announced here. Bayonetta 3, obviously a huge game, obviously a game that is going to be expected to run at 60 frames per second. If that's the case, I have a hard time seeing that happening on the original Switch, and it might be why we haven't seen Bayonetta 3 yet. A Switch Pro, Bayonetta 3, Mario plus Rabbids, Breath of the Wild 2, all of this stuff is starting to build up and could make for a really cool Nintendo Switch Pro reveal. And to add on to everything, I do feel like the lack of announcements for Nintendo over the past year or two is likely due to the lack of a Nintendo Switch Pro announcement. I think once we have the Switch Pro announcement, there will be somewhat of an onslaught of games announced following it. I definitely feel like there are some games with trailers that can't be shown or would be difficult to show because they would just look too good to be running on the original Switch, and would therefore send everyone into crazy speculation mode. I mean, we're already there now, right? But it can get worse. Oh, trust me, it can get so much worse. All right. I personally would love a Nintendo Switch Pro announcement. DLSS and OLED are my two favorite upgrades in the rumors, and I'm really hoping those stick around. They could be a huge difference maker for Nintendo that is struggling to keep up with new trends and games coming from Sony and Microsoft. Huge announcements are coming this E3 with incredible looking games running incredibly well, and without a Switch Pro, it's tough for Nintendo to keep up. Obviously, the Switch is and will keep selling well, but if they want to keep up the amazing third-party support they've had over the years with ports like Doom and The Witcher, I think it's time to consider really just getting this secret out there and revealed finally. We all want it. We all also want the rumors to stop, and I desperately want to make a video about the Switch Pro that actually exists rather than what I think it will be. So please, Nintendo, bring it on. Give us a new Nintendo Switch Pro announcement at E3 this year. Make our dreams come true. That's all I have for today. So until next time, I'm out.